Hi guys, and welcome back to Mastering Python. Today we're going to dissect one of these fundamental variable types that we learned in the last lesson in much more detail. We're going to look at strings, everything that you can do with strings, slice them, dice them, combine them back together, search them, replace things. All of these methods are going to be covered today. This is going to be a very in-depth video about strings. So you're going to learn the basics, but then you're going to learn some really advanced techniques of stuff that we can do with strings. Now, strings are one of these key building blocks of programming in any language. Anything that you want to display on the screen or interaction with the user tend to involve strings. And we've already seen strings in the Hello World program that you wrote. The Hello World bit, that was a string. So they're really central to programming, and this is why we're going to dive into them in much more detail today. Okay, so let's fire up VS Code and get started. In VS Code, we start by creating a new file. Let's call it strings.py. And we open this. We can also open our terminal right away so that we have it here. Mine opened up quite high for some reason. There we go. So if you remember print hello world, you must be sick of this program by now. This little portion here, this hello world portion, this is a string. So there are several ways that we can create strings. The first of all, let's give it a variable name equals, and then we start with these double quotation marks, and my name is Gunnar. So we have these double quotation marks here that delineate the string. This is how we can create a string. We can also create strings with single quotes. For example, animal, and then here we just use single quote and the otter. Now you might be wondering, why do we have these different methods? Why is there single quote or double quote? Very simply, what if you want to include one type in another string? So for example, we can have a quote, and in here, it's a beautiful day. You can see we have our single quote part of the string. In that case, we wrap it in double quotes so that we don't have a problem, so the compiler doesn't think the string ends. Or we can have another quote, single quote, she said, hello. And here we have double quotes inside the single quotes. This is why we have these two methods. Now, if you have a string that is a lot longer and it might break across several lines, you can use triple quotes like we've seen with the comments before. And this preserves the line break structure and everything. So here we can write a longer paragraph, and this contains line breaks. So this is a longer string that we want to keep the structure of. We use these triple quotes, and this can be either triple double quotes or single quotes. And of course, we can also name this a variable. So here we can, for example, go paragraph equals to this string. So like this, we save the string. So this is the way that we define strings. Very straightforward, with single quotes or with double quotes. One cool thing about strings is we can pinpoint individual characters in the string in something called string indexing. Now, if we want a special character, and we have our name Gunnar, and we want the very first character, we write 0. So we write these square brackets 0. This indicates that we want the very first character in the string. Now you might be wondering, why is 0? In Python and in most languages, when we have a sequence of things like here, we have a sequence of characters, the very first one has an index of 0. So if we print this out, and then we run our script, as we know, strings.py, you see, it prints out the very first character, G. If we want the second character, we go 1. And now let's try this again. There we go, we have the U. And like this, we can pinpoint individual parts of the string that we want to print out. Now, Python is cool that it also allows negative indexing. So we can print another character. We can go print and then name. And look what happens when I go -1. Okay. There we go. It printed the R because -1, it comes to the last character, the R here. If I go -2 and run the string again, it goes to the A. So we can go backwards from -1 or from the beginning from 0. And you will see one thing if we go print -1 or if we go print name and the 5th, they're both going to be the same character, whether we count from the start or whether we count from the back. Now, when you're indexing a string, you have to be very careful that these characters actually exist. If I now go print and I want name and I say I want the 10th character, even though the string only has 6 letters, and I run this, we're going to get an error. We're going to get this index error that the string index is out of range. So we're trying to access a character that's no longer part of the string, because the string has 6 characters, but we're trying to access the 10th. Right. Let me just comment this bit out here. We can now take this one step further in something called string slicing. Right now we've just taken individual characters, but what if we want a whole range? Right, so let's take our quote, print, and we go our quote, but now we want one section. So let's say we want from the 11th to the 16th, or to the 16th. Here's a little quirk. When we slice, when we take a section, this is our starting index, and this is our ending index, but it's not included in the string that we get back. So if we run this, you see, we have this word beautiful, because if you look at your quote up here, it's a beautiful day. The B is the 7th at index 7th, and we have this space, which is at index 17. So this space doesn't get returned. And like this, we can get individual sections. We can do another example. So if we have another quote, and learning is fun, and we just take a random section of this, and we just want from the 5th letter all the way up to the 10th. So we write 11 because 11 is not included. Now if we run this, see, we have this random section here, which is from the 5th position. Remember, it starts at 0. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is where it starts, the 5th position, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so this T is at the 11th position, but it doesn't get included. And this is called string slicing, and it's very powerful because it allows you to just grab sections from a longer string. If you don't know where to stop and start, you can also leave some of these blank. We could, for example, go print, another quote, and we want it to start from the very beginning. So we leave the start empty, and we want it to go up to character 11. Now if we run this, see, it started at the very beginning, learning pi, and then as before, it stops at this 11th character. We can also say that we want it to start at a certain position, quote. So we want it to start at the 11th character, and we want the rest of the string. So we leave the end bit empty. If we run this, there we go. It's just started with the 11th position and goes thon is fun. So it takes this last bit all the way to the end. Now you may have guessed this. If we go another quote and we leave both of them blank, what do you think is going to happen? That's right, it's just going to print the entire string because we've left the start and the end blank, so it starts at the beginning, it ends at the end. Now we can take this one step further. In this slicing command, if we have a string and we go start, stop, we also have a third value that we can indicate, and that's the step. If we have our another quote and we want to print, we can go another quote. We want to start, let's say, at index 3, we want to stop at index 15, and we want every second letter. What happens if we run? There we go, we get this random stuff. So it's starting here, and then it's going letter by letter in steps of 2. So it skips 1, prints 1, skips 1, print 1. We can then take this, another quote, and let's say we just want every second letter throughout the entire string. We can leave the start empty. We can leave the end empty, and we just go 2 here. Run this. There we go. It's giving us this string, learning Python is fun, but only every second letter. Right, so here's a little challenge for you. With everything that you've learned so far, so let me write this down again. I'll delete this. We have our start, our stop, and our step. We can go positive and we can go negative. You can get a string that goes from end to start. You can reverse it. Pause the video, and as a little challenge, try to reverse a string using string slicing only. Once you figured it out, start the video again and come back for the solution. Right, how did you get on? So this is a common trick in Python. We can have a string, so we have another name. The name is Gunnar. And now we want to reverse this string. We can go print, name. The start we leave empty. The end we leave empty because we want the entire string. But we go backwards, we go in minus steps. So if we run this, there you go, it has my name backwards, Ranuk. Yeah. Because we left the start empty, we left the end empty, it took the entire string. But instead of going forward steps, we're going backward steps by 1. There you go, neat little trick on how to reverse strings using string slicing. Okay, so we've learned how to take sections out of strings, how to index and how to slice them. What if we have several strings or several values and we want to stick them together into one string? Let's look at this. I'm just going to comment this out so we start with a clean slate. I'm going to take the same example that we used last time. First name is Usain. Last name is Bolt. Okay. And we want to make one string out of these 2 strings. We can very simply go full name is first name plus, and then we want a space between the 2, and we go plus again last name. And if we print the full name and run the script, there you see we have Usain Bolt. So you can very simply just concatenate strings. You can put strings together into another string by using the plus symbol. Now you have to be careful. This only works with strings. If, for example, we also took age 37 and we added the age at the end and we ran this, we get an error because age is not a string and this only works with strings. But we've seen a solution to this before. We can very simply just convert the age from an integer to a string with these conversion methods, and if we run this, everything works fine. You can also repeat strings several times. If we, for example, have the word language is Python, and we can go print language times 3. See, it takes the string Python and concatenates it 3 times. It puts it together 3 times because we've multiplied it by 3. Now this is really useful when you want to create a layout, when you print things nicely. We can start layout is we start with a star and then we add, for example, a minus sign, and we want this 20 times, and then we add another star at the end. Okay, and if we print our layout and we run this, we have this nice divider that we can use when we print data. We started with a star, then we have 20 dashes, another star, and we put it all together in one string. Amazing. So we've covered how to define strings, how to slice strings, how to index them, how to concatenate them. Let's look at some of the methods that come with Python when we're dealing with strings. Again, I'll comment all of this out. I'll start with first name is Usain, last name is Bolt, and let's see what we can do. So the very first thing, if we want to know how many characters there are in a string, we can go print len and then the string itself. So this is a method that tells you the length of a string, which can be very useful if we're trying to index them to make sure that the string is long enough. If we print this, see 5, there are 5 characters in Usain. Another thing that we can do, we can convert the string either into uppercase or lowercase. If we go print and then we have first name, then we go upper, or we can have print first name lower. Let's run this. There we go. So the first time it's made Usain all uppercase, the second time it's made Usain all lowercase. Right, let's imagine we have a longer string. So we have our hello string, which is hello. Let's write it lowercase, hello world. We can, for example, go our hello title. And what this does, you'll see, it capitalizes each word within our string. So hello and world were lowercase. If we use the title, it makes hello and world, each of these words uppercase. We can also swap the case. So we can go say first name, swap case, and run this. And you see now Usain, it's taken the uppercase, you made it a lowercase, and the rest of the string was lowercase, has now become uppercase. And finally, we can capitalize a string, so capitalize, and if we run this, you see it's just taken the very first letter of the string and made it a capital letter. So compared to title, title capitalizes the first letter of every word. If we use capitalize, this only capitalizes the very first letter. So there we go. So there are 5 really useful methods that we can use to manipulate the cases and the way that certain strings look. Now, one thing that's important to note, these methods don't actually change the strings. So if we, for example, go print first name dot upper, we want it to uppercase, and then we print first name again, it's created the uppercase version of the string, but then afterwards when we print the string itself, you see the string, the original string, stayed the same. And that's because once a string is defined, you can't change it. It's immutable, as it's called in Python. But when we call these methods, they create copies of the original. Okay, right, so these are some of the initial methods. Let's comment this out. Imagine we have another string, so language equals Python, and I'm going to put some spaces at the beginning and some spaces at the end. And it can be that you read data from a data file or from user input that it has unwanted characters either on the left or the right hand side. Now, one way to get rid of this are three methods in Python. If we go print language.strip, this will strip the spaces from the start or the end of our string. So if we print this, we run this, you see there's no spaces before Python and there's no spaces after Python. If we only want to strip from one side, we can use lstrip. So let's say we want to strip from the left-hand side. All of these are gone. We still have three spaces. We can't see them, but they're here. If we want to strip from the right-hand side, we use rstrip. And you see now these three spaces in front are still there, but it will have stripped the three spaces behind. But we're not limited to only stripping spaces and white spaces. If this were 3 stars, this is probably a good way to demonstrate it. We can tell it which character we want to strip. So with right strip, we want to strip these stars at the beginning of the word. You see the left-hand side stays intact, but the right-hand side is gone. If we want it the other way around, we could go like this. And now the right-hand side is still there, but the left-hand side is gone. This is super useful when you're loading data from a data file and you're getting it from a source where it's tabulated in a different format. You can just strip the white spaces or strip any stars or leading characters so that everything is the same format. We can also replace certain sections of strings. So if we have our string hello is hello world, so we're defining our variable, and we want to replace this world bit within it, we can go print hello.replace. Then we say what we want to replace. So we want to replace world and we want to replace it with Python. Now if we run our script, hello world has now become hello Python because we've replaced word with Python. In addition to replacing certain substrings, we can find substrings or characters within a bigger string. So in this case, if we want to find the word world in our hello world string, we can go print hello find world. If we run this, it tells us hello world is at index 7. So if we go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, world starts at index 7. Now we can also find world by using the index method. We can use world and this will give us exactly the same output. So again, the index of world is index 7. Now there is a subtle difference between find and index. If, for example, we now go hello.find Python or print hello index Python, Python doesn't exist in the original string. It's hello world rather than hello Python. Now, if we run this, let's see what we get. Okay, so the find command returns -1. -1 means Python doesn't exist in this string, whereas the index method returns an error. So the index throws this value error. It says substring not found because we're assuming it exists and we're looking for the index. But if it doesn't exist, it says, wait a minute, something's wrong. It throws an error. We'll look at this in much more detail in the error handling video. But for now, just know that there's a difference between find and index. Find returns -1 if the string doesn't exist. In addition to finding the index of the substring, we can also count how many times it occurs. If we go print hello count, and then we go world. I'm just going to comment this bit out here so that it doesn't keep giving the error. Now, if we run this, we see that world occurs 1 time in hello world. But what about letters? So we can just look for the O. How often does the O occur in hello world? We run this, O occurs 2 times. We have the hello and the world. So you can look for the number of times that certain strings or certain characters occur in a bigger string. It's very, very useful, very powerful when you're looking at data analysis. There are also a number of methods that we can use to inspect the content of a certain string. So let me just comment this one out. I'm also going to comment this print out. We have our string hello is hello world. What we can do, we can test whether the string starts with a certain string. We can go print hello starts with hello. and print hello ends with, let's say, Python. So if we run this, we get true and false because hello world starts with hello. So this starts with returns a true value, but it doesn't end with Python. It ends with world. And this is why we get this false. We can also inspect the content of the string itself. We can go print hello is alpha. And what this tests for is whether the string is made up of letters A to Z, lowercase and uppercase. We can also print hello is digit, and this checks whether the string is made up of numbers only. Or we can go hello is alnum, which is it a combination of letters and numbers? So let's run this. Okay, so here you see we get false 3 times. I'm just going to comment this out. We get false 3 times because hello world is not just made up of letters. We also have a comma, a space, we have an exclamation mark. It's not made of digits. There are no numbers in hello world. And it's not a combination of numbers and digits because we have this comma, we have the space, and we have the exclamation mark. Now, if we want to test it, if we're going to get a positive value, we can, for example, go ABC is alpha, print 1, 2, 3 is digit, print ABC 1, 2, 3 is alnum. And let's run this. There we go. So we get 3 true values. ABC only letters, 1, 2, 3 are only numbers, and ABC 1, 2, 3 is a combination of the two. So there we have it. There are lots of methods that you can use to inspect the content of strings, to concatenate strings, to replace certain aspects, find how many occurrences of a substring there are in the main string. By all means, have a play with all of these functions because you're going to come across them time and time again, and make sure that you know that they exist and how to use them properly. Next, we're going to look at incorporating variables into a string. We've learned how to concatenate strings using plus, where you put one string plus another string to create a third string. However, we can take this to the next level with something called f-string or formatted strings. Now, if we create a new string, we can go sum equals f and then the quotation marks. So f strings start with an f before the quotation marks. And here we can go the sum of 1 and 2 is, and then if we use these curly braces, we can write any valid Python expression inside. So in here we can go 1 plus 2. And if we print this out, the sum of 1 and 2 is 3. Now we can take this to the next level. What if we define x is equal 1, y is equal 2? In our string here we can go the sum of x and y is x plus y. Let's run this again. We get exactly the same because x is 1, y is 2. So f strings take whatever in these curly braces and replaces it with the value. In the case of Usain Bolt, we could go first name equals Usain and then print an f string. The name is, and then first name. If we run this, the name is Usain. Again, it's taken whatever's in the curly braces, evaluated it. So first name is equal to Usain, and it's replaced it with that. F strings are absolutely essential that you understand because you will be using them in your code. If ever you deal with strings and variables, which is very likely, you are going to come across F strings. And finally, the last thing I would like to talk about is splitting and joining strings. Imagine we have this string, hello equals hello world, how are you today, question mark. So this is a slightly longer string. We can now go print hello dot split. Again, I'm just going to take all of this and comment it out. Right, let's run this. So what do we get? We get this list of individual words that have been split. We have this long string, and now we have individual smaller strings made up of the individual words. So we can set this to a variable. We can go words. I need to remove this. So now we're saving all of these words into Word. And then we can, of course, print words. We run this, and here we have our list. Now we can also tell it what it is that we want to split them by. For now, if you just leave it as such, it defaults to a space. But we can say we want to split by the exclamation mark. Now if we run it again, we have hello world as 1, then the exclamation mark splits the two, and then we have how are you today as the second part of the split command. Now, just as we can split strings, we can join them back together. So if we have this list of words or sentences or data, we can join them together, and the syntax for this is that you take the string that you would like in between the individual words, dot join, and then the list of words that you want to combine. So we can go print, and if we want spaces between the words, we can go space dot join, and then we want to join all the words together. And if we run this, there we go, we have our sentence again. Hello world, how are you today? ? Of course, we don't have to use a space. We can also, for example, use a hyphen. If we run this, we have dashes between the individual words. The world is your oyster. You can go creative with this. And there you have it. That was strings. So we've learned a lot of things that we can do with strings, a lot of methods like looking at the length of a string or splitting it apart, putting it back together, replacing individual substrings and finding them, the difference between index and find, a lot of these intricacies to do with strings. And you will come across all of them, especially F strings. Now, there are plenty more methods out there, and we will cover a lot of them as we go through the individual videos. For now, make sure that you play around with the methods that we've covered in this video and that you're absolutely confident with them. Now again, as always, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. It helps me grow the channel. Next time we're going to start looking at conditionals, where Python becomes dynamic. We can make decisions if something is one thing or another thing. The execution of the program changes. Happy coding, and see you in the next video.